I always forget. There we go. Now, before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the country throughout Australia and the connections to the land, sea, and community. We will pay our respects to elders past and present and extend that respect to all Indigenous that are here with us today. So, for those that you may be joining for our first happy hour, maybe you're a seasoned happy hour participant, but how it rolls is I'm going to ask Sarah a bunch of questions about her life and her journey in the wine industry. We've got a couple of options for you to get involved. So you can either put your hand up, put your camera on, and ask the question that way. Or if you pop it into the chat box as well, I'll be able to ask Sarah too. So there's no such thing as a dumb question. We're all here to learn and also take advantage of the time that Sarah's given us. So, oh, sorry, I've got one more to let in. Let me just quickly let them in. And actually, we've got strong representation from across the country tonight. We've got, I haven't seen Queensland yet, but we've got Vic, South Australia, New South Wales, Tasmania, and WA too. So well done. I'm sure a Queenslander will pop in a moment. Daylight savings time has thrown everything into a loop. Now, let's get started. So, Sarah Crowe, Yarra Yering winemaker, Halliday winemaker of the year, Gourmet Traveller winemaker of the year. Is there any winemaker of the year that you haven't won?
You forgot ASVO.
Oh, sorry, I forgot that. So, have you won them all?
I don't no, I'm sure there's one or two out there that I don't even know about. So it's been a few though. It's very humbling.
For sure. Now, Sarah, how did you actually get started in the wine industry?
A little bit of a more unusual path, I guess. When I left school, I studied horticulture and I worked in plant nurseries, garden centres, on an established tree farm. And yeah, I guess that was my pathway into one day phoning Brokenwood and asking them if I could work in their vineyard.
So okay, we'll go back to a little bit about horticulture and trees and stuff. Was it something you were always interested in? Did your family have a connection? Did you just hate being in an office and you loved being outside and with nature?
Yeah, I did always like being like out in the weather and working with my hands and stuff. I did for work experience at school. I did accountancy, which yeah, so some accountants I work with now would laugh at that, but I thought I was wanted to be in business, and I think I was quite good at those kind of business studies. And I have done some like small business accounting courses and things like that. But yeah, I just was always drawn to pottering about in the front yard. And so I just kind of started doing a bit of that. And my high school boyfriend and I actually started studying horticulture together, and we were going to buy a plant nursery. And then, Bunnings opened and killed all the plant nurseries. So yeah, that didn't eventuate.
Fair enough. And then so you randomly one day, randomly out of the blue, just like called Broken Wood? Like you did you call the cellar door and be like, hey, I want to talk to someone about getting into winemaking? Like, had you heard about Broken Wood? Because that's quite a big step to going from, hey, I'm kind of interested in that to actually like picking up the phone and saying, hi, me.
Yeah, I had kind of quit my job and traveled overseas. And when I was in France, I saw my first vineyard. And it was autumn time, so the vineyard looked really stunning. And like France is saturated with vineyards, so you kind of you can't get away from them as you're kind of driving down into Spain. So I guess this was the second half of my, or the back end, I suppose, of my kind of backpacking overseas trip. And so I was just starting to think about, I am going to need to get a job when I get back. I'm kind of the first half of my trip was through kind of the Middle East, like Turkey, Syria, and Jordan, and I spent hardly any money. And then like a month into my trip, which was more kind of Europe and USA, I was like, the money was just flying out the door, and I was like, oh yes, I'm going to need a job when I get back. But um, I had my older sister worked in a bottle shop at the time as well while she was at uni. And when I mentioned like maybe I can work in a vineyard, she said to me, "Oh, you should call Brokenwood. I hear they're all really nice there." So she hadn't been to Broken Wood. It was just people in the industry, and I suppose reps that called on her, and her boss is quite the manager of that bottle shop, was quite well known, I think, in the industry. So, and actually, in later years, he was a broker at Langton's who was like, "Oh, Sarah, we're doing we're selling some Yarra Yering this week." I'd see him when I called into Langton. So, it's a bit of a small industry, but yeah, my sister was like, "Why don't you call them?" I guess there's a bit of a lesson in that is that it is a small industry, and like your reputation can kind of follow you a little bit. But I just picked up the phone and yeah, spoke to the office, and the Beck who was I then worked with for like 9 years when I was there just said, oh yeah, you should phone KB, our vineyard manager. Here's his mobile number. So yeah, hi KB, I'm a horticulturalist, I'd like to work in your vineyard. And he said, yeah, we've got couple of weeks pruning, come on up, just like that.
Yeah, wow. And so, like, I guess you didn't, it was, and that was the only time you had to try. You didn't have to try repeatedly or anything like that. It was just a simple, lucky phone call because realistically, like, pruning, and I live here in the Hunter, but like, it can be really challenging to find people that want to prune and hand prune vineyards. So, just right time, right place, and a right perseverance, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I guess it's can be a little bit out of my comfort zone sometimes to make those kind of calls, but I was in a situation where I was working was about to close down, and so it was like, well, I either go back to uni and pick up that arts degree, which I don't think there's a career in for me. Or I pick up the phone and try. So yeah, I called him back. I was like, oh, I need to resign, and is a month to oh, it was 2 weeks or 4 weeks, I can't remember. Is that too long a time? I think it was 2 weeks. And he said, nah, just when you're ready, come on up. And I guess it was maybe partly his casual nature. It was not quite June, so they were just probably starting to ramp up into pruning. So timing, which I didn't really think about, I suppose, when I made the call. I called him a week later just to confirm in a way that everything was okay, but also kind of find out if there was a caravan park nearby where I could rent a van. And then he was like, "Oh, there's a bunkhouse here. You can stay here." And I was like, these people are weird. Like he doesn't even know me, and he's offering me a room on the property, and yeah, and some work. So um, I guess that was the start of, I guess, trying to or understanding that people in our industry can be like super generous.
Mm. And actually, we're finding it a lot with the Rootlings network as well. And it's like people just want to help left, right, and center. So I think our industry, it's so important in our industry that, everyone continues to give back and collaborate and communicate. I also think that the Broken Wood bunker might go down in some history books as like, I don't know, having spawned some of the greatest winemakers across this country and maybe a couple of diseases as well in there. So you started broken wood pruning in the
Yeah.
vineyard. How did you then jump into the winery? Was it just like a natural progression, or you just were like, hey, let me in there?
So KB's daughter, Katrina, who is now the vineyard manager at Broken Wood, by then I'd moved into a room, was renting a room off her. And, she just at home in the evening, just chatting or on the back veranda or something, she was like, oh, you should, telling me about pruning and harvest and what that was like. And she said, you should probably go and get a job in the winery because once we finish picking at Broken Wood, we won't have any more work. And I was just casual there. Um, and so it was really just because I needed slash wanted to earn more money and take that opportunity. Um, and then, yeah, she actually also suggested that I go and see Jim Chatto at First Creek. Uh, and yeah, went down there and, well, rang up, an appointment to see him. And when he said, yeah, no worries. And I said, oh, but I don't know anything. And he's like, we'll just teach you everything you need to know. It's fine. So I worked at First Creek for 3 months. Um, and then when I was done there, uh, they needed some help in the winery at Brokenwood. So they were like, can you help out in the winery for 6 weeks before coming back to the vineyard, before we get close to pruning? And so 6 weeks turned into about 8, and turned into never actually going back to work in the vineyard officially at Brokenwood. So, yeah.
Wow, there you go. And so, do you think that you just found a natural way in the winery that just kind of kept you interested and engaged and there was a love there?
I think I'm probably a fairly practical person and a good problem solver. Um, and I don't mind working kind of hard and getting my hands dirty. So I mean, actually, Jim offered me a full-time role in the cellar, at First Creek as well, at the end of that 3 months, and I said no, no, I want to go back to the vineyard. I've enrolled in a university degree in viticulture, so no, the vineyard's kind of where I want to be, and I guess I just probably hadn't spent quite enough time in the winery. So with a few more kind of weeks, I think I just really fell in love with the whole process then, because wines, I was really learning about wine at the same time, because I had not zero wine experience, but I didn't know a good wine from my elbow. So yeah, I think it was just that whole kind of learning experience. Really, I found that quite, I guess, stimulating. But then I also liked just going out there and kind of getting the work done. Yes.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so how long were you at Brokenwood then?
9 years in total. Um, so I think after about 2 years, maybe, I was made assistant winemaker. Um, and then I was studying at Charles Sturt University part-time whilst working full-time. And then that kind of extended a little bit because I did a couple of overseas vintages as well, which kind of delayed the uni, but also gave me these other, I guess, great experiences and different people to talk to about wine. So it was really nice to be able to go away for a month, but then come back to I guess, the security of a job and that year-round experience, I suppose, in the winery, which is, I think there's a real benefit to doing that if you're quite young and, you've got 27, not if you're young probably, but, you've got all these vintages under your belt. But if you haven't kind of seen a season through or a whole year through, um, I think there's a really good experience for young people in actually just staying somewhere for at least 12 months to get that full cycle of experience.
And so, from the regions that you traveled when you were younger, what had the most impression on you?
Well, I did two vintages in Oregon, so working mostly with Pinot, um, and one in the Rhône Valley, so I guess Shiraz. And I think probably Oregon, because I got to do a lot more work there. They, gave me a lot more responsibility. Whereas when I was in France, it was like they had their kind of career seller hands there, and also I was female, so every time I went to pick something up, some bloke would run over and say, "No, no, no, Sarah, I'll do that," and I'm like, "It's okay, I'm strong," and they're like, "Yes, yes, but I'm the man." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
guess I'll go sampling then."
yeah. Well, yeah, it's a bit interesting. And so you found that that was quite different in the two areas do you think that's more of a career seller hand thing that they just know the systems and the structures, or is it more of a cultural thing?
To be honest, they probably didn't. It was like a bit of an exchange, because we had the same distributor in Australia, like Brokenwood and Jabolet. So it was a bit more of an exchange that we kind of had going on. And one of us would go there, and they never sent anyone back to to do harvest because they don't really leave their region. This was in 2008, so it was a long time ago. Um, Whereas, yeah, when I was working in Oregon, particularly my second vintage there was like a massive harvest, and they were ordering tanks and barrels because there was just so much fruit coming in. And, I arrived and did an 18-hour stint on the forklift, just tipping bins. And so, yeah, they had no choice but to get me working.
For sure. There was nobody there to carry your buckets, that's for sure.
No, no.
So you're at Brokenwood. How did you get from the Hunter to the Yarra and make it to Yarra Yering?
I had been in the Hunter for 12 years, and I was coming up to 3 years at Bimbadgen, which kind of when I went there, I promised that I would stay for 3 years. Um, but I guess because we had that kind of conversation in the beginning, I always had in my mind that after 3 years, in a way, I didn't really owe Bimbadgen anything, because it was a funny conversation, I think, when I started, where I kind of thought, yeah, I'm just gonna be here for 3 years. So I started to think about what my next kind of career move might be. And at the time, I couldn't see, you need a bit of a shuffle to happen in a relatively small region. So, and I just couldn't see my next move in the Hunter. So I started to think about, well, you know, could I? It's quite safe here. All my friends are here. I've kind of grown up in the wine industry in this region. But if I was to go somewhere else, because I didn't, in a way, I almost stumbled into the Hunter Valley because it was partly the nearest grape growing region to Wollongong, which is where I was based. Well, the nearest serious region. No, I don't want to offend anybody. The nearest region of some size. And so that just kind of happened, luckily. Yeah. So then it was a whole mindset, challenging myself. Well, actually, where do I want to be? What style of wine do I want to make? If I'm going to leave the Hunter, where do I want to be? And I decided it was kind of a cooler region, cool climate region. So I just started looking out for jobs and applying for jobs after I kind of was getting close to that 3 years at Bimbadgen.
Yeah. And when you stepped into the role at Yarra Yering, was it just winemaker or was it winemaker and general manager together? Or is that role evolved over your time there?
Yeah, it was just winemaker. Um, and in fact, I asked for a position description and was told, well, you're not the general manager or anything. It's just winemaking. I was like, oh, okay, well, I can do that. Yeah, no, and it was probably more like 2017, so about 4 years later. Um, and because we were being managed remotely, and I guess I had a few frustrations around that and the time it was taking to, I guess, get some responses and things. So I kind of went to our managing director and I said, it's all been working okay, but I think we need a general manager. And he said, well, you can do it. And I said, no, I wasn't asking for the job, but I was, saying that I think we can be run, this place can be run better if there's somebody kind of committed to that. And he said, well, no, I'm asking you that I'm actually saying that I think you can do it. So that's how it happened. Yeah.
Did that come up in like, because I know that there's obviously a lot of people in here, that are ready or wanting that opportunity to take to the next role. Did that come by like, a structured conversation? Like, did you guys have annual reviews, or did you just go up and say, hey, we need to chat about this. This is the issues that I see, and here's the solution that I think you need?
No, we didn't have any formal structured review process, which I think is probably good for both manager and employee. Like they are actually a good thing to do, even though we can get quite nervous around them, because I guess we feel like we're being judged and then we have to judge ourselves. Um, but it just, after a number of conversations, uh, I said, I think, I yeah, it was just on the phone, and I said, I think that we need to change something here, and this is what I think it needs to be. Um, so yeah, I really just kind of, and because we'll manage remotely, we would just talk on the phone semi regularly as well. We didn't even have formal times to catch up. It was just very much, if there was a reason to call, we would have these conversations. So it kind of suits me that way, or it suited me that way. And I guess we're still a little bit more casual like that. But we have these very informal meetings every morning when we get to work, or particularly the vineyard and the winery. So there's this kind of usually 10 or 15 minutes where we all kind of gather and have a bit of a chat, but also there can be like, how many meals do we have last night and what's going on here. So there's some very informal kind of work chat that happens, as well as I guess a team kind of bonding catch up. Everyone knows, how everyone's going on that day.
Do you think that's really important to build a good community within your team?
I think it certainly helps, and it's not structured. I mean, if something happens or it's busy, then it's a really quick catch up. Like particularly if we're picking or something during harvest, it's quick catch up. Everyone goes, but in the less time sensitive times, I think it is really important because, for instance, I don't necessarily have morning tea breaks with everybody, so there's less chance for me to actually have that time with the team through morning tea and lunch. So for me, I think it very much works for me because my day can be very varied. But I think it's a nice thing for the whole team.
Yeah, for sure. And it also sets, the day up, the week up for success, as well as the guard comes down where people can say, this has happened, like just in a very, very personal way. What do you think the biggest challenge was going from winemaker to general manager, winemaker together in the same title?
Mm, I guess it's splitting my time between the two because I'd like to say that I'm winemaker first, general manager second, but the draw on my time, if you if you looked at that, I think it would be general manager first, winemaker second. But I can do that because I have a good stable team, um, both in the winery and the vineyard. So where people have been there for long term, and that just really helps. And the more stable and the longer that team's been in place, the more I'm less worried about some of that more routine day to day winemaking, the real security stuff, like analysis checks and things like that, topping of barrels. We have those conversations, but I'm not driving that. I'm just saying, hey, when was the last time you
Mm.
topped?
So you're kind of empowering your team and giving them maybe the go ahead and the security to know that they're doing their job well rather than micromanaging them.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. My desk is also in the middle of the winery, so um, when I am on site, I'm very much, it's not like the door's already always open. There is no door. It's literally a desk between the lab bench and the rest of the winery. And I actually think that helps. I was in a small room around the corner where our vineyard manager sits when he's doing desk work, but this meant that I could, and this happened, I think it was taking on that general manager's role. I realized to be more aware and helpful when I can in the winery, that actually being hidden around the corner wasn't the right place.
Yeah,
And that now that where I'm just very accessible to everybody at any time. And also if a truck rocks up, then I can jump on the forklift and load the truck. So
yeah. I guess that's really interesting about that physical space. And I think about, we can all think about in our own lives when you have to approach your boss's door and knock on it, there's a sense of anxiety. But when you're casually passing by a desk, 12 times a day, you can see when the opportune moment is to just be like, oh, hey, can we have a conversation about that? So, yeah, I think that's really interesting about that physical space, and
Mm,
just being present for your team
yeah.
through and again, guys, if there's any questions whatsoever, anything that you want to know, please pop it in the chat box or yeah, pop your camera on and ask it. But the leadership journey, because obviously, in the winemaking team, in the vineyard team, you're working with people constantly, and then to go into the general manager role is massive as well. Is there anything particularly, are there any leaders that you look up to in the wine industry or without the outside the wine industry, or any courses you do, or anything that you can continually upskill your own leadership style? Yeah.
Yeah, I have been lucky to participate in the Future Leaders course, and that was back in 2010. So that was a fair while ago now. Uh, Largely, I think you learn from the managers that you've had in your own career, um, what what works and what you certainly learn what doesn't work just by having lived through that, I think, yourself. So I definitely have had some my own personal bosses and managers who've been really good at creating a team environment, and then I've lived through those that were like quite poor. And so I think just through that kind of lived experience, um, I think I and we're a small team as well. So if one person is not happy, not feeling the love, then it really does impact pretty much on everybody. And we do also at Yarra Yering, we have morning tea, like the timing for morning tea and lunch with the vineyard and the winery is the same. Um, and particularly, I guess, through harvest. If the vineyard team finishes picking, they don't just leave. If we're still working in the winery, they then come in and help us to finish up at the same time. So I think throughout the year we're just creating this great like team, I guess, mindset. Uh, I did also just a couple of years ago take myself off and do a general manager's course as well. But I talked to some friends who maybe they're a little bit older than me who've also been in these roles, and I feel quite comfortable in saying, "Hey, there's this situation happening. This is what I think should happen, or what's your feedback?" Because I think to be a good leader, you need to understand your own kind of shortcomings, and um, I know I can be quite quick to judge, and then it's like, that's it. This situation has happened. This is how I feel about that now. And then I just want to move on. I want to fix something and move on. And so it is good for me to have somebody a sounding board sometimes in for some situations where I'm like, am I reading this right? Am I being a little bit harsh? Do I need to give this situation more time? So it's
Mm.
good to have those people, yeah, kind of on
And I
call.
and I think that leadership piece, like it's a journey, right? You're always building, you're always adapting. And I don't know if you feel the same, but like, winemaking general manager and then leadership is a full-time job as well on top of that, like making sure your team are right, checking in with them as much as you can, because people are the business and people are sometimes the hardest part of the business and getting those nuances right.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it does take a team to make great wine, that's for sure.
absolutely. Yeah.
Now, let's talk about, some of the things that you've achieved. What has been for you one of the proudest accolades that you or your team or your wine have received?
I think it's the when we've won Winery of the Year. Um, because that's not just like for one wine, and just um, that's not because of one person. That is because of the whole team, and it's consistency across wines generally. So it's not like, oh, we did really well with one wine. It's just like the whole kind of portfolio has done really well. And I think what I love about that is that this isn't just, it's very different to a lot of other professions where, you know, maybe if the market's right and you get a couple of lucky predictions and then boom, you make the company heaps of money. That doesn't happen. Well, the making money part rarely happens, but uh, it's a year of growing the grapes. It's a year of making the wine, and it's maybe 6 months to a year of that wine being in bottle. So when you get an award like that, it's not because of, well, we all just worked really hard in the last 6 months. It's like we're all working hard and well as a team together 3 years ago, and this is the result. And there's there's it's very hard to do something quickly in our field, and you have to kind of plan and you have to organize your resources, and sometimes you might need to sacrifice certain capex spends, or the things, if you sacrifice the nice to do's because what's really important and what you need to get done. But when those awards happen, it's because of what you did 3 years ago in the vineyard, 2 years ago in the winery, and it's really shows that everybody kind of stuck to their guns, I guess, and cared for that whole time.
Yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, I think that kind of industry award is just so well received as well for the consumer, and whatnot. Let's go into winemaking. Let's talk about some varieties. Let's talk about what do you think or feel at the moment is the most underrated variety that we have here in Australia that needs a bit more of an opportunity to shine?
Oh, Jenny, you should have given me a heads up about that
Oh
one.
yeah, I think I gave you heads up on the other questions, not this one.
um, I don't, what we love in the industry is different to what consumers love. And in the industry, we're all talking about Grenache. That's not really filtering through to consumers. And I don't even think it's necessarily filtering through to a lot of kind of wine lists outside of maybe South Australia. So, and it's been around for so long. Some of these most beautiful Grenache wines that are being made are from like super old vineyards. So I'm not quite sure, and I'm sure somebody, particularly in South Australia, is thinking hard about how to kind of spread the Grenache word. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I would say Grenache and Riesling probably similar. You know, industry industry loves them. Trade talk about loving them, but maybe don't kind of act on that quite so much, and the consumers still think they're old fashioned.
Mm. Do you, I guess, and if you had probably the answer to this, you would be very rich. But like, how do we break down those barriers between industry, trade, and consumer? What could we be doing a bit better?
I don't know.
That's
um,
okay.
I I don't know. I would like us to rethink the way we do tastings where, like you all stand in a room on one side of a table and people walk around on the other side of the table. I feel like that's kind of done, and I also don't think it's a great environment for tasting in, particularly when you're just chit-chatting. Um, I don't know. But I also don't have an answer for, unless you're doing more formal kind of mini master classes or things like that, which takes a whole lot more effort. Um, yeah, and consumer, I don't know. There's a lot of people, even on socials now, there's a lot more people trying to talk to wine and make it more accessible. So that might be kind of breaking down some barriers, I would think.
Yeah, and someone sent me a bottle of Moscato that an influencer this afternoon that an influencer put up where it was shimmer and it was completely glitter, and you're like, who would drink that? And it was like, when they poo, will they just poo glitter? Like, what have they done to this wine? But it's also kind of like, if that gets someone into wine, should we be poo-pooing that? You know what I mean? Catherine Brown at the tech conference said, did I ever think Brown's Brothers would make a salt, I think it was like a salted caramel wine? No, I did not think that we'd be making that. However, do the consumers love it? Yes, they
Yeah.
do. And at the end of the day, you're turning a product that might, from a vineyard that might be getting ripped up into something that people are actually connecting with. So I think we can appreciate that sometimes that product development might not look interesting, exciting, or even palatable to us in the industry. But there's a bunch of people outside the industry that just want to have fun with our product.
Yeah, we can be a little bit traditional to our own detriment, I think.
For
Yeah,
sure. For
yeah.
sure. Now I want to talk about, well, we've talked about glitter Moscato. Now let's talk about the iconic Crowe vs. George that you've released, because this is quite a new product. And obviously, working in new product development can be really tricky and challenging. But for those that don't know, it is, their most premium wine. How much does it go for what's the recommended retail price?
It's only packaged into magnums and the RRP is $1,500.
Okay, so just an investment, a wine investment. Do you want to talk us through the product development of that? Because when I heard you talking about it a while ago, it was like, okay, so we've got, number one, how do we make that even better?
Yeah, it is. When the our owner said to me, "Hey, can you make me a better a better version or a super version of the dry red wine number one?" I was a little bit offended at first 'cause I'm like, "Isn't it good enough?" And he's like, "No, no, no, it doesn't need to be a lot." Um, and I guess that's somebody s- slightly not in production, like in the business, but not kind of working in the business, just trying to, I guess, push and challenge because, I would never have I would never have had a go at doing this unless somebody kind of pushed me to. And we can, I think, in our industry, we can be our own worst kind of critics and undervalue, um, I guess, ourselves and our work quite a bit. It's like, oh no, I don't think it's that special. But very luckily, we have this kind of brand and vineyard that has a lot of history. So rather than trying to come up with something kind of brand new around this, I just thought the best thing was to go back to the origin of that number one blend and kind of pull that apart um, piece by piece, and then kind of think about how those pieces fit together. And the core of that wine had always been the block number one, and that's where that naming comes from for dry red wine number one. And it was Cabernet and Merlot that has always been kind of the guts of it, I suppose. So I thought, well, maybe we don't need to um, completely reinvent the wheel, but just think very deeply about the very first vintages and where the Cabernet and the Merlot came from, and revisit that. Um, and you know, in a way, also I make it a little bit more how Dr. Carradis, our founder, was making those wines in 1973 rather than what we're doing now in 2025. So it was it's a modern interpretation on what he was doing back in 1973.
And what does that look like? Is it the oak format? Is it the blend ratios? Is it the vineyard just like purely itself? We're not writing notes to go and steal the recipe or anything.
No, it's a Cabernet Merlot, 75-25%. And that block number one is mostly Cabernet, but there's Merlot interplanted across that block, which is a real pain in the ass, to be honest, to look after. And so we don't find it so tedious now that we've got this kind of uh, uber special kind of product that we're making from it. But like even sampling, I have to kind of duck up and down to try and sample that Merlot because they don't ripen at the same time. So it's about, the vines have been growing side by side for 50 plus years. That was the kind of the the majority of the first couple of cuvées made in the first few vintages as well. So we brought it back to the vineyard again. And yeah, the Cabernet Merlot grow together interplanted. Technique wise, he just had this little kind of basket press, like a little manual one. So the wine would stay on skins for a lot longer. And it brings this lovely kind of savory element, and a softer tannin profile to the wine as well. And the acid tends to be a little bit softer when we've left that wine on skins like that as well. So in a way, it's a little more kind of brings a rusticity um, and a softness at the same time to the wine. So it's vineyards resource, but it's also kind of technique, which feels a little bit more kind of old fashioned in a way, but makes this really beautiful wine that's going to live forever. So
Amazing. Well, when the Rootlings come to the Yarra Valley, you might just have to break it out for us.
we can do that. Yeah, no problem.
All right, I'll make sure it's me and all of us here. We'll get
Yeah,
the first tickets to that.
yeah. One
Um,
of the 200 magnums. It's
yeah,
it's put aside for Rootlings.
yeah, done. Love it. Well, you know what? We only need like 50 mils each, so we may go really far. Um, I'm going to ask you a couple more questions before we open up to the floor because I know there'll be burning questions. But what advice would you give to your younger self?
I think a lot of people always say this, but worry less. Um, just keep working hard, uh, and caring about what you're doing, um, which is, staying true to yourself, and everything will be okay.
That was really lovely. All right, I've got some rapid fire questions for you, and you
Let's
can
go.
take a moment to think of it. But what is your preference? Vineyard or winery?
Winery, but we can't do it without the vineyard.
That's okay. There's no wrong answers. Winning a trophy or receiving 98 Halliday points?
I'm going to say trophy, just because I'm involved in the wine show system and I know how goddamn hard it is to win a trophy. Yeah,
Amazing.
yeah.
This one I think is going to be really difficult, but Chardonnay or Cabernet?
Chardonnay. Always.
Okay, and then all right, bonus question. If the
Yeah.
Chardonnay is not from the Yarra Valley, where is the other favorite region in Australia for Chardonnay?
Well, it's probably Margaret River.
Any producer in particular or a combination of producers?
Combination. I could rattle off 6 producers that I would enjoy on a regular basis. So yeah, it's the blessed region.
It is. Um, Yarra Valley or the Hunter Valley?
Oh yeah. Uh Yarra, because that's where I am and I feel comfortable. See, they're not rapid fire answers. When I left the Hunter, it was really hard because I'd kind of grown up in the industry there. So it was hard to leave, but it was hard, but it was easy to say yes to the role here. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and it is. And like a lot of us in here are from, those smaller-ish regions that you do really need to wait for someone to like pass away or make a big move for any shuffle to have happen. So I think it's really important that we talk about like sometimes stepping outside of your comfort zone can be really challenging, but the rewards are there. And at the end of the day, you can always come back to where you're from too.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. I visit the Hunter every year, so.
All right. And well, actually, now you've been blacklisted and we're burning your keys, so you're not allowed to come back in.
Oh, the key to Colburn has been taken away.
It has, the mayor of Cessnock has bought it, has revoked your status. Um, old world or new world?
New World. It's exciting stuff. So yeah, I think we're almost spoilt for choice in Australia when it comes to great wine, and they doesn't have to kind of break the bank as well. So yeah, let's go
Is it
with you.
absolutely? And that is there other than like obviously you've got Margaret River Chardonnay. Is there any other region, maybe particularly within Australia, that you are just loving what you're seeing coming out of that region right now?
I mean Tassie is pretty cool, isn't it?
Mm,
Yeah, there's a bit of cool stuff going down there. I think that will be interesting because there's this amazing growth happening down there. So it's going to be an interesting place to watch just to see how, you can you get too big in a region like that? And is the kind of quality offering going to be diluted for a number of years? I think it's going to be really fascinating to watch.
yeah, for sure. All right. And the hardest question of all, Kelpie or Golden Retriever?
Oh, golden retriever, because kelpies are just so busy. It's like I need to relax sometimes.
Just, I agree. Kelpies can be very, very busy.
Yeah.
And the reason why I didn't say collie is because obviously Sarah has. Is it a border collie or a Aussie Shepherd?
She's border collie and she's
Yeah,
asleep right here next to me.
she should be. But
Yeah.
obviously, if I'd asked border collie, it would have been that.
Yeah.
So you did really well on my rapid fire question, except for the Hunter Valley Cessnock question. That's all. But let's open it up to you guys. You guys have been so patient. So if you want to turn on your camera, if you want to pop something in the chat box, like there's no such thing as a dumb question. This is your time now to ask Sarah anything. And you might not get the opportunity to again or for a little while. So we've got one. All right. Oh, I need to open it up a little bit. All right, this is from Rex. Hi, Sarah. Thank you for sharing. My burning question is, after comparing so many vineyards in different countries you have visited, what makes Australian wine unique? I've also got a second question too. But so after comparing so many vineyards, what makes Australian wine so unique?
I think the fact that we don't have quite so many rules and regulations around us, and so we have this kind of freedom to do trials and experiment, particularly with kind of varieties, but and also with blends because we can use blending to make something that's just really delicious. And so yeah, we can draw on all of our resources um, without having to kind of stick to some kind of regulation.
Rex also followed up with the second question. You mentioned keeping vineyard and wine original and traditional. What would you suggest the younger generation do to make it more sustainable?
Oh, can you say the first part of that question?
Oh,
I
okay.
said,
You mentioned keeping the vineyard and wine original and traditional. What would you suggest the younger generation do to make it more sustainable?
yeah, it's a good question, isn't it? I don't know. Like the thing that worries me the most is kind of the energy and resources into packaging, but I just don't know. I don't know if I can drink wine out of a tin can, instead of a glass bottle. Um, but yeah, I think we just need to. I mean, that's the back end of wine, but I think we just need to be really respectful of the land as well. To try and we take from it. We've got to make sure we're kind of giving back and keeping it happy and healthy. Yeah.
It's a really great question and a really great answer too. James asked, do you have any non-conventional viticultural or knowledgeable practices that you use or believe in?
Non-conventional. I don't know. I'd like to trial stuff because if I don't have a go at something like using amphora or ceramic eggs and things like that, then how do I know that that's not what we should be doing more of? So I do like to kind of keep be interested and inquisitive rather than just kind of sticking to kind of what we know. And I think blending's a pretty cool way to be a little bit more out there also. Not sure if that answers all of those questions.
Oh, James, how do you feel about the answer? Was there any follow-ups to that? I don't know if his camera's going to come on. That's all right. All right, now I've got a truly controversial question. Gippsland Chardonnay or Mornington Chardonnay?
Oh,
Are you going to get kicked out of Victoria? Maybe.
we are supposed to be all in this together, you guys. Uh, I mean, Gippsland's a very big region. You've got East Gippsland and South Gippsland, like it's massive. So, just because it is more diverse, okay, I'll go with Gippsland.
I think that was the right answer. All right. Well, oh, wait. William, what's a winemaking practice that you think more people should be doing?
Winemaking practice. The bigger you are, often the harder it is to keep different parcels of your vineyard kind of separate. And, depending on your kind of facility, you can be kind of hamstrung by the size of your fermenters and things. So I think if you have an opportunity to kind of be a little bit more detailed in your winemaking through some smaller ferments, you can help to understand different sections of your block maybe a little better. And I can say this because we've got 600 kilo fermenters at Yarra Yering, and so we keep lots of things separate and do lots of different techniques. So I don't know. I think that's maybe a way to really kind of hone in on your vineyard resources and understand it a little bit better. But then it also gives you more options when it comes to blending if you can do some different techniques to those wines also.
For sure. All right, Lockie had a question. Hi, Crowe. Just wanted to expand on that Tassie point you made before, as there will most definitely be a lot of Pinot and Chard coming on board from Tassie in the coming years. What might be the implications or challenges a premium Pinot or Chard producer like yourself and a lot of Victoria may face?
I guess what I'm thinking is that particularly there's going to be like less competition and a lot of younger vine material. So, the market might be flooded with some, I guess, cheaper Chardonnay and Pinot from Tassie. And I think, Tasmanian wine has this kind of premium association just with the brand Tasmania. And I just hope that, the people planting loads and loads of vineyards down there really work hard to kind of maintain, I suppose, that premium wine that is associated with brand Tassie. But I think there's definitely going to be more cool climate Chardonnay and Pinot on the shelves. And so that, yeah, it could just be there's a bit more kind of saturation in the market. And I mean, somebody might be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I have a feeling that Pinot has already started to kind of slow down volume wise. Chardonnay, not so much. It's still in growth, but yeah, I think I guess in a way, I'm kind of more concerned for brand Tasmania than I am for brand Yarra Valley.
Emily said first year there was a surplus of Pinot Noir.
Well, massive crops this year in Tassie, right, for Pinot. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Do you think though, do you think though, if we've got really good quality, really good price point of Australian Pinot, Riesling, Chardonnay, whatever it is, do you think that pushes the internationals off the shelves in Dan Murphy or off wine lists in restaurants? Do you think brand Wine Australia will be there to fill the gap, or do you just think it's too much competition?
I think there's a lot of competition, and globally, like everybody, people are drinking less wine across the globe. So there's a lot of regions where, governments are putting resources behind marketing. Certain regions like Chablis, which I can't really understand because I feel like Chablis doesn't stay on a shelf in Australia for the last kind of 3 years. But there's a lot of kind of regional associations that are coming to Australia to really market um, market their region. I think diversity is good on a wine list, and having some international wines uh, is good because people are learning more about wine in general. And then also maybe sometimes, depending on what they have access to, they might be trying these international wines and saying, well, you know what, like that costs twice as much as my regular favorite Chardonnay. And I don't think it didn't taste like it was twice as good. So actually maybe it'll having access to those wines might help consumers kind of say, you know what, I'm happy with Australian and I'm going to drink local because there's less carbon miles in that, etc., etc. But I think it's good for the overall education. Um, we also need people to drink Australian wine. So
100%. And also, I think the cork situation might be helping us a little bit because then when, go for value of the dollar, if you open a box of wine and most of them are corked, like you're like, well, I can also trust screw cap too. Jeff
yeah,
has asked, another controversial one.
okay, hit
What
me.
what are your thoughts on no low wines?
I have no thoughts. um, Look, I think we're a long way from them being tasting like uh, wine, in that the process is it's pretty hardcore, like the heating of the wine and the spinning cone and all of that. I think there's also this other thing that that doesn't get talked about very much with these no-low wines is that often, the energy required to produce them, because a lot of wineries have to truck that bulk off to go through this process, which is like energy hungry, consuming, um, takes a lot of power to take the alcohol out, and then you truck that wine back. And then, the difference between wine and beer is that, beer has all these other grains and things that can give you kind of sweetness and mouthfeel, and wine doesn't. Like ethanol is the mouthfeel. So when you take that away, they're generally, these wines are sweet because that's bringing kind of mouthfeel back into the wine. So I think they're kind of out of balance, and so the health message um, is a little bit skewed with Nolo, because yes, you've taken the ethanol out, but you've probably added a heap of sugar back, and you might also think they're good for you, but they're actually not that great for the planet because of the energy used to kind of make them. So also, I just don't think they taste very good.
Mm.
We're not there yet. Yeah.
And I guess like on the flip side of that, when you start to think about like the consumer, do you then market to and potentially start a love affair with wine with a consumer that might come in at the no low point and then make their way up? Like you don't know, because I guess if wine doesn't have an option, and it might not be very good for us, but like does something else just come and fill that spot? Like I don't know if you can get them like no low vodka cruiser or something. I don't know if that exists in the world, but you know what I mean? Is there another category, another alcoholic category that will take that spot? And then all of a sudden we've lost that drinker.
Yeah,
So,
maybe. I mean, maybe maybe the problem here is more in our culture, that people feel like they need to sit there and look like they're drinking wine even if they don't want to. So maybe we need we need to change the way we kind of accept that, and you can go out with your friends and drink, you know, soda water with a slice of lemon in it and have a good time. So it might be more kind of a reflection on our culture, perhaps. Don't know.
Lots, lots of controversial points tonight. I think this has been our most controversial one yet. So thanks for tuning in. I'm so glad this will be on YouTube later. No, it's not that. Now, just before we wrap up and say thank you, because like the time goes so fast and it's hit 8:30 already. Were there any other final questions or comments for Sarah? Busy lady, hard to get her once she's left this chat. I can't see anything coming through. I reckon there's somebody waiting and they're like, I don't want to press enter. Press,
Go, press it.
just
Go.
press it. Just press it. Awesome. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for your time tonight. It's really appreciated. It's not every day that, young people get to chat to industry icons who are just nailing it in their field. So I'm so appreciative of the time and also the generosity you've shared with your whole journey, the leadership, all of that, and also letting us know that you love golden retrievers more than kelpies.
I
But
don't know. It depends on the dog, you know.
it's true, it's true. But just to say thank you, we will be sending you some wine. Surprise, surprise. Obviously not no low wines, but wine
Gippsland Chardonnay, perhaps.
potentially, but actually wines that Rootlings members have made because it's really
Oh,
important for
wow.
us to support Rootlings with their own wine brands. So we go out and purchase wines from Rootlings members and then gift
Awesome.
it to our wonderful icons so they can enjoy it, share it, post about it on social media.
Yeah,
Just
I look forward
suggested.
to that. That'll be great. Thank you so much.
I promise I won't send you the glitter Moscato. Uh, But yeah, thank you so much for your time today, Sarah. I'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. But yeah, and lots of thank you for your times in the chat as well. It's all going off now.
Thanks. Thanks for joining, everybody. It's been fun. So, yeah, and good luck with the rest of the course.
Cheers. All right, see you.
Jenna, bye.